Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rabbi Saf Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom to everyone. As we approach the Heilige Chag of Sukkos, one of the most common questions about Sukkos is, why is specifically the holiday of Sukkos, Chag Sukkos, is referred to as Yom Simchateinu, the day of our happiness? We know that there's an inyan, there's a halacha that we should be happy in all the Yamim Tovim and all the Moadim, our days of happiness. So what's unique about Sukkos that it got the name as Yom Simchateinu, the day of happiness? So I want to share with you what Rav Yitzchak Hutner says. He points out that the Chagim, they don't live in isolation, rather they are part of they're in different sets of grouping. One group is the Shalosh Regalim, which we know consists of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkos. And that is explicitly described in the Torah, that the final regal, the final holiday of this group is Sukkos after Pesach and Shavuos. And that also represents the final stage in the agriculture process when all the food is gathered in. And that's why it's referred to in the Torah also as Chag HaAsif, the festival of gathering, which in a Pashut, a simplified understanding, people are happy when they get all the produce, they bring it in and they get it. However, there's also a second grouping, which consists of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and ironically, once again, of Sukkos. This idea that Sukkos is also connected to the Yamim Noraim, to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we see the Midrash demonstrates this idea. The Midrash says that the mitzvah of the Arbaat Haminim, the four species, that when one has a court case against him, the way to know if he was successful or not is to see how he leaves the court. And if he leaves the court waving his weapon as a sign of triumph, you know he succeeded in the court case. And accordingly, that's the symbolic idea of the lulav, that it indicates that we have confidence that Hashem has accepted our tshuva on Yom Kippur. So this strongly shows us a strong connection between Sukkos and Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Specifically, that once again, also in this set of holidays, Sukkos represents the end of the tshuva process. So Rav Hutner says, you see that Sukkos has two hats. From a certain perspective, it's kind of like a double Yom Tov. It also has the hat that it's the ending of the three regalim. On the other hand, it also has the hat of the ending of the Yamim Noraim of Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Rav Emanuel Bernstein Shlita explains that this is a possible reason why Sukkos, more than the rest, is described as Yom Simchateinu, our time of happiness, because it represents the culminating festival also for the Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkos, but also the Yamim Noraim, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Perhaps a support for this idea is the difference between the offerings, the korbanot that are brought in Musaf, between Sukkos as opposed to the other holidays, the festivals. On Sukkos, we sacrifice 14 lambs, which is exactly double the amount of the other holidays, which we only offer 7. Perhaps this is because Sukkos indeed has two hats. So to summarize what we're saying, Sukkos indeed has two hats, and both are the ending of a very important series. One is the Yamim Noraim, the other one is the Moadim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkos. But indeed, perhaps we can add that Sukkos has an element of a third cycle that's being ended by Sukkos. We know that Sukkos is intrinsically connected to the idea of Mini Atzeres or Simchas Torah, depending where you live, if it's the same day or not. And that is the day that we end the process of explaining the Torah cycle. It's also interesting to note that ending of something, the completion of something, has a lot of significance. The Ramban says at the beginning of Bereshis that every day that Hashem created something, it says, V'elokim ki tov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that it was good. But we all know that the only exception of that is the second day. Why? The Ramban explains, based on the Midrash, that tov, something can be considered good only when it reaches completion. However, on the second day, the creation of the water began, but it was not completed until the third day, which is why, by the way, on the third day, we see the word tov, that it was good, twice, because two things were completed. But that is, for our purposes, that is why we didn't have tov. We didn't have anything, no mention of being tov at the end of the second day. And instead of that, on the third day, Pa'amayim ki tov, is because one was for the completion of the waters, and again we said tov, Hashem said tov for the creation of the plant life. So this gives perhaps more support to the idea that Sukkos is Yom Simchateinu, the time of joy. Why? Because it is on Sukkos that we finished so many cycles. I just want to end off with a nice story that I read over Shabbos, and I think it has this idea, another aspect of why Sukkos is a happy time. It's specifically discussing the idea how Sukkos comes after the Yamim Noraim, after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and I want to share it with you. The story goes as follows. So it's a true story. It's not only a mashal. There was a big tzaddik came to town. His name was Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, and he came to some town. So everyone came to hear what he had to say. But there was one person, that was a bit of a wicked person. He says, let me see what he has to say. I'm going to laugh at him in front of everyone. That was his plan. So he goes there, and he finds already many people around this tzaddik, and he's in the middle of saying the following story. This perhaps was a parable. Not perhaps, for sure. Once upon a time there was a king who had all kinds of very interesting objects, but his most favorite of all was a hand watch that was very expensive, made of gold and very expensive stones, and he always used to take it out and play with it and look at it and get amused by it. But one day the king had to go on travel, so he asked his number one person to take care of it, and he said, please take care of it with your life. It's the most important thing. And of course, a watch, at least in those days, had to be taken care of. You had to turn it or twist it, whatever it is, to make it keep going. There was no batteries in those days. And this person that took care of the watch, he also got very amused by it. All the special, unique stones were very shiny, so he played with it, and one day it just fell on the floor. And as it fell, straight away it stopped. The time stopped, and one of the hands in the watch just got a bit bent. So this was, now the tzaddik saying the story, we said his name was Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, turns around to everyone, he becomes pale and says, the expensive watch stopped. The expensive watch stopped. What is he going to say to the king? How is he going to come up to the king? How is he going to give him back the expensive watch? The second he said that, the person that came to try to make fun of him suddenly fainted, and everyone heard a big bang as he fell on the floor, because he understood that it wasn't just a regular story, it was a parable. And he understood the nimshal behind it. The nimshal behind it was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of all kings, Melech Malchi Amlachim, has a very unique watch that's very vulnerable, that Hashem plays with it all the time in a certain perspective. And that's all the souls, the neshamas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in Ginzei Meroimim. And what did he do? He gave it to us to take care of it. He was mafkid in our hands, the neshama. Such an expensive thing for him. And we have to take care of it very carefully. To take care of it. How? With Torah and mitzvahs. But what do? Unfortunately, we didn't take care of it enough, and we run after the Hevli Ha'olam Hazeh, because we get all excited. We do all these things that we see around us, and at the end of the day, we bent it out of shape and it stopped working properly. What are we going to tell the king? What are we going to tell the king when we come up there? So that was his story. But then he says to them, don't worry. Look carefully at the story I said. I never said that the watch broke or burst into small pieces. All it did was got bent out of shape. It can never break because the neshama is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, chelek Elokam imal. So don't ever give up hope. We'll straighten out the hand that got bent and we'll take care of it from now. We'll change. And that's the idea of us going out with our lulav. And we're showing Hashem that we are happy. We're taking the Abbas Aminim and we're waving them in triumph. Why? Because we're showing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take us back and we're going to change, and it's never too late to get closer to Hashem and to rectify the way we lived until now. Yiratzon that we'll take this message home with us and try to become people that take care of the pikadon, what Hashem took to give us to take care of the most important thing of all, the neshama, our soul, chelek Elokam imal. Good Yom Tov.
This concludes another episode of the Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on the Prism of Torah.